Territory coastline, over 85% of it is Indigenous owned, recognised under Australian law. There's like the Northern Territory also has the largest population percentage of Indigenous peoples living in the population out of every state and territory in Australia. So because of that, it also means that the NT is a big focus on like government policies and programs to do with like Indigenous disadvantage and how they say, you know, they're trying to close the gap. And that was even before like those discussions were happening, before the NT intervention. So because of that, a lot of research has happened with Indigenous peoples up this way. So I think the people that I've worked with and the communities that we go to a lot have seen lots of researchers come and go, have seen lots of different ways that researchers work, and they're really savvy and know, like, you know, what they like and what they don't like, what they want to engage in and what they don't want to engage in. And so ARPNet, the founding members, said that they really wanted to direct how that research process happens. So instead of, you know, government saying this is what needs to be done, and maybe that not matching the needs on the ground, the founding members said, you know, we want to try to say this is what we want to do research on in the communities. Can we find funding to do that work? Or if there's funding that gets, you know, like tenders that get put out that align with our interests, then that's what we'll go for. And have also been really strong in saying, if we don't think that it's of use to us and our communities, then we're not going to, you know, put our hands up for it, and we're not going to do this work that we don't think is of importance. So I think that was why ARPNet really came about, because of past experiences and seeing how things could change for the better, and them wanting to be in that discussion to make it change for the better. And so they wanted to make sure that they also had advocates and champions on board. So like, I'm Indigenous, but they say I'm in the middle because I can help try to liaise with both sides, being, you know, in and out of the system, like kind of knowing what it's like to be an Indigenous person living on the ground, but also knowing that, you know, like I haven't been through ceremony. I've chosen to go, you know, with Western education. So them feeling okay with that, and, you know, me being kind of the in-between person, and then also using is a bad word, but making the most of the experience and talents of other people, non-Indigenous people, to help them with their cause. And also where there's maybe uncomfortableness to work in that space, then they get others on board to do that work. So just everyone working to our strengths has been a great approach to the ARPNet model. What's the first point of call for the members and for anyone outside of ARPNet? So there's 3 ways that ARPNet operates in getting jobs. The preferred way is that the members themselves and their research teams on the ground have like lists of projects or interests that they want to do research on, and we look for funding that matches those interests. The second way is that if a tender gets put out that we kind of already know that is of interest or aligns with the interest for those different smaller ARPNet hubs around Arnhem Land, then we contact the members to say, this, you know, tender came up and they're looking at this and they want this and that done, and this is the amount we can apply for. Do you think this is something we should do or not? And sometimes, you know, if they're all for it, they'll say yes. And then other times, like if they talk, like there's a team leaders in each of the different locations, and they'll talk to their members and say, you know, if they're wanting to do this work in the middle of the year, we know we've got ceremony on, you know, there might be more funerals happening because of the backlog from wet season. Then they'll say, no, like we just can't do it. And they need to know these are the reasons why. If they would be keen to change the dates and fit around us, then maybe we'll consider it. And then the third way is other research institutions getting like big projects, whether it be ARC grants or other things, and then they subcontract a small part of their project to ARPNet after discussion. You know, they might say, oh, we've just heard about you guys and we're in Maningrida anyway. You know, this is the project that we're doing, do you think you guys would be interested in doing, you know, this component of it? Then I'll talk to the members and the team leaders and say, what do you think, yes or no? And they'll also do a background check on the researchers that have asked. So they're really, really strong in knowing, like, not blacklisting, but if there's people that they don't feel comfortable working with, or institutions that they think have maybe a shady reputation in working with their communities in the past, and they'll say no. So I love that they have that power to say yes and no, because that's how it should be, because it's theirs. So I'm never forcing or saying, you know, yes to this, yes to that without checking. Level, if we're working the top down, it's like a real focus on like the closing the gap stuff. So a lot to do with health and mission. At the territory government level, I would say still like those discussions around developing the north is a big push. So trying to suss out what economic opportunities there are in the Northern Territory in general, and they're increasingly considering how that will impact or what that means for Indigenous peoples and doing stuff on Indigenous lands. And then at the local and community level, just from those that I have been working with for over 15 years, it's really about, I think, stuff to do with making communities strong and keeping families strong. And a lot of the discussions, especially in the outstations, has really been on culture and how that has a strong part in a person's social and emotional well-being to then be able to, you know, take on other aspects of their life. ARPNet has, I'm not sure if you've heard of the ARPNet Dilly Bag, and they're adapted participatory action research methods that I guess ARPNet has used and then tweaked to kind of fit this circumstance, you know, for up here in the top end of the NT. So lots of, I guess, more qualitative research that happens within ARPNet, and then backed up a little bit by quantitative. And so that has sometimes been a surprise for funders, because they're kind of, you know, really heavy on the quantitative as opposed to the qualitative, you know, like people's stories. And, you know, we still use the both for triangulation to make sure we're getting, you know, people's stories correct and that true story. But yeah, so a lot of, I guess, adaptive participatory action research methods. Yeah, and most of the work that happens is done in local languages. So we have one executive, he's, I think, speaks 16 languages. So yeah, like I'm super impressed. It's like so bad that I really should speak more languages, when you like between like one and then bang into another, a different language, like, you know, within, you know, space of seconds, it's just like bang, 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 like several different languages. So yeah, it's so much richer because of that. So not only using methods that better fit the situation, but also being able to do it in a language of like, you know, the mother tongue for that person. And then also factoring in cultural requirements. So making sure, you know, that there's men speaking to men, women speaking to women, to reduce jealousy. You know, we have young people, old people having a mix in the group with different clan groups, different skin groups. So, you know, if someone can't talk to someone because that's their poison cousin, someone else can. They also use me a lot being in the middle to like go speak to Ballender or non-Indigenous people if they feel like, oh, you know, maybe, you know, it's better that you go to, you know, assign them that, you know, that recognition that there's someone higher up and they might not want to speak to us. Like, you know, even though it's not said, but kind of just that perception that, oh, you know, maybe you go and you speak to like, you know, the person in the office. So just trying to factor in all of those things and how we can make it work best. Yeah, like to make people feel comfortable to engage in the work that we're doing. But I think a big reason that people do choose to engage is also because the ARPNet executives and their teams on the ground are also really savvy and trying to make sure that things that happen, the work that gets done, is actually things that they think the community is interested or, needs to engage in. So that also helps with getting people involved. And then, staying places for a while, like, usually 2 weeks minimum, being seen at the shops, at the local footy games, day and night walking around, big teams, so they know that people are here, what we're doing. We have like this open house policy wherever we're in a community renting a house. People come have meals with us, suss us out before, they decide if they want to talk with us or not. But some places, because we've been going back so long, members are living in those places, they see the ARPNet shirts on, they're back to do some work. And they're like, the members live there anyway, so they're usually priming people well before, the whole research team comes in to say, this is happening, these next 2 weeks or the next 6 months. Yeah.